Hi, I'm Steve Barlow. This is the Humanised Workforce Future You podcast video, where we're talking about perceptions of the future, issues that we need to be aware of, and their role in a rapidly changing work and life environment.
Hi, I'm Craig Saffin. The Humanised Workforce Future You podcast series is focused on the key factors evolving to create a more humanised workforce and how people from all walks of life are creating their future selves.
Welcome back to the Humanised Workforce Future You podcast. Last week, we spoke about the agile leader, and the week before, I think we touched on it as well. So we're going to continue on from there today and look at a slightly different topic. You might have, I'm sure most of you will be aware, you will have all travelled in planes at some point of time. And you'll know that at the beginning, when you're sitting there and the flight attendant is preparing for the journey, and one of the things that they always say is, if you see this mask, this oxygen mask drop down, then the thing to do is to put your mask on first, and they show you what to do. And they say that if you've got children, or if you're with an elderly person or somebody that you're looking out for, put your own mask on first, because you need to have the oxygen yourself if you're going to be able to later on help the other person to put their mask on.
You ever been on a plane when that's happened, Steve?
No, fortunately I haven't. Have you?
Oh, many times. Yeah, I've flown a lot in Asia, and there's a lot of typhoons and cyclones and stuff, and you get turbulent weather, and that'll trigger the things. Yeah, it's quite scary when the wings are flapping like a bird, and and the mask drop down. You think, oh, okay, well, that was a nice life.
That's an
Thank you very much.
Anyhow,
let's look at it under the growth and the skills you need from.
So there's a number of sort of topics we're going to look at in this, and first up is valuing of growth. So what's this got to do with leadership? Well, if you're a leader, you've got to put your own mask on first, and that means that you've got to value your own personal growth and your own professional growth. So that's kind of the big picture view of this, Craig.
So what are the general topics we're going to try and cover in this? Because I don't imagine we can do it all in this session. So what are the general topics we're going to cover?
Yeah, well, I think we should start with our own personal growth.
Yeah.
I mean, as a leader, you've got to feed yourself. You've got to look after yourself and your own mindset, your own mental attitude, and that involves doing things that you enjoy doing, extending what you know in certain areas that you find fulfilling. I'm a bit of an odd person, because things that I find fulfilling and enjoyable are things like science. I love science. I love physics. I love things like that. I'm no good at it. I mean, I can't do any of it, but I love learning about it, cosmology, particle physics, and all of that. And these days you can look at YouTube videos, or you can download ebooks about it, and you can discover all sorts of things. And I run a business, and it doesn't really feed directly into my business, but it makes me happy. It makes me enjoy my life and fulfilled, and that flows through to other stuff that I do. So that might be reading, or it might be sport, or it might be other activities, but I think it's important to feed ourselves. That's part of putting our own mask on.
How do you think that personal growth piece is, I think, is like a habit, isn't it? Having the habit of wanting to learn things all the time, and just to be inquisitive, isn't it? I think it's a very important skill as the world moves faster and faster in change, isn't it?
And I find myself with interests that come and they stay for a while and then they go. Like I'm interested in some other strange things, like fountain pens and watches and things like that. But I go through phases where I'll I'll watch a lot of programs about that sort of stuff, and then I'll sort of get sick of it after a while and give it a rest, and then I might come back to it again.
It's interesting, isn't it? Like when you are interested in learning about things, then you find yourself in different groups, don't you? I was talking to someone earlier today actually about tribes and making sure you're communicating with the right tribe. But when you are a learner and you want to pick up and learn new things, then you find like-minded people, and I think that moves you into different tribes. And all of us, I think, we're members of a large number of tribes, whether we know it or not, I suppose, whether we're conscious of it.
I think it's interesting that no matter what it is that you're interested in, there's probably other people that are interested in it too.
That's right,
and they're probably producing stuff and putting it on YouTube.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's amazing.
So, yeah, you can connect, and it might not go anywhere in terms of relationships with any of these people, but you learn from them, and, you get inspired and you enjoy what you're doing. And even if it doesn't directly input into your own leadership journey or your professional life, it kind of does indirectly, because it nourishes your soul. It gives you something to do that you enjoy, and that influences every other part of your life, really.
One thing I've noticed in the last period is a lot of people focusing on mindset coaching and also neuro-linguistic approaches to things and so on. It's becoming a lot more cognitive, isn't it? And it's not really spiritual, but it's people are actually really trying to understand the way people think and the way you can keep a healthy outlook on life and so on, isn't it? It seems to be a fairly big self-improvement area, doesn't it?
Well, I think it's needed because the world is changing very quickly, and if you don't keep growing, you get left behind really quick, and then it's hard to catch up again. And if you put if you get off the horse for a year, it's hard to catch up. It's actually, the game's moved on a fair way in a year.
Yeah.
And so you've got to keep at it in that sort of growth mindset. But it's also interesting. I mean, I love learning new things, discovering new things. There's also a professional side of it. I mean, you can be very deliberate about professional growth. And, I lecture in the University of Tasmania at the School of Medicine in their leadership program at the master's level. And, there's great things happening there. There's wonderful things happening there in that program, innovative, sort of game-changing things that are happening. But, most of what informal learning is in the public domain.
Right.
And if you're motivated and you're interested, you can still learn the same stuff without doing the course. And these days, there are so many avenues where you can sort of have access to professionals. And in the past, you wouldn't have so much, and they might have written books. But these days, a lot of them they've got YouTube videos, or you can find lectures that they've given.
Or blogs, right?
Or blogs.
It's so much available, different media, isn't there? So.
Yeah. And a lot of universities these days, offer their courses online. You don't get a degree, but you can still do the same stuff.
Sure.
And some are more interesting than others, but the point is that you don't have to spend a fortune. You don't have to spend anything really, except a bit of time to learn.
Yes. Well, it has to be part of your habit, your daily habit, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, if you haven't got the time, if you haven't got a lot of time to learn, there are subscription services that summarize books for you.
Yeah, right. That's right.
Things like Audible that allow you to listen online and learn stuff.
Yeah.
I've actually been listening. I'm listening at the moment to a pretty interesting book called The Personal MBA.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And a young guy in America has created this thing. I haven't done an MBA, but a lot of the stuff that he's talking about is what I already know, but it's interesting the way he puts it together, and it's interesting to be reminded of it. And I've been learning some stuff as well that I didn't know before, although I hadn't thought about like that before.
Yeah, sure. I think that's always. I did an MBA a long time ago, and it was always, I found it to be filling in the gaps of what you needed. It's as similar to
Yeah.
what you were just describing. Some things you'll know, some things you won't know, but at the end of it, you'll have a more complete, rounded approach to how you can handle business. One thing I wanted to ask you is about from a professional growth perspective. What are some of the how would you establish, even when I did that MBA, they were talking about continuous learning and lifelong learning. They've become sort of a bit cliche now, but it is important, isn't it, to be always wanting to learn and to have a habits of being a learner, isn't it?
Well, I think it's developing that habit. It's developing the value of it, first of all, that you have to see it as something that's important to you. And that's also, though, that's part of putting on your mask, because, you know, if you're wanting your team to be constantly learning, well, you really need to be constantly learning too, and valuing your own development professionally.
Yes, yeah, the old "do as I say, not as I do" thing is dead and buried, isn't it?
Right.
If you're not leading from the front on this sort of thing, then I don't think you're going to have much credibility.
And I think the point is that there are so many avenues today to learn stuff.
Yes.
It's much easier to learn things today because there are so many resources available online, and easy ways of doing it, like an audio book. You can listen to it in the car or in the train or whatever. Or even these summarizing things, those summarized books for you. You can read it in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And it'll give you the main point. So there's lots and lots of avenues to do it. And I think it's a matter of developing the habit, having the mindset, saying, yes, this is important, I want to do this, and actually making time to do it, and to be regular about it, not just to do it once or twice and then forget about it, but to build it in as a lifestyle, that the growth mindset becomes a lifestyle. Thanks for watching this video on Humanised Workforce Future You. Please leave a rating or review for the series on the medium where you source your videos.
The transcripts for today's video can be found on craigsafin.com. Please subscribe to the series to avoid missing out on future episodes.